Harry's Wife, Part 101.2, Not Wanted. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, catching up on recent events and allowing you to understand them through the prism of narcissism. I'm going to refer to a number of newspaper articles. Bear in mind that they're a few days old because they relate to the events just prior to the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, and therefore this obviously contains information that you already know, but it is important to visit this to enable you to understand what was going on and, of course, how narcissism plays a part in all of the information that you hear. As you are aware, prior to the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Harry's wife and Prince Harry were on their pseudo-royal tour. We had the deep joy of listening to the world's most banal and vacuous speech at the One Young World Summit in Manchester at Bridgewater Hall. Thereafter, Harry's wife and Harry jetted off to Dusseldorf in relation to the Invictus Games. They then returned to the United Kingdom and were due to make an appearance at the Wellchild Awards in London. Originally, they had been invited to attend Balmoral, where the Queen was, but they declined that invitation. Undoubtedly, Harry will have been influenced by his wife. Remember, Harry's wife, through her narcissism, will maintain a connection to the royal family when it suits her purposes, i.e. leveraging the title. However, when it comes to actually discharging any obligations and duties associated with that, her narcissism goes, nah, not interested in doing that. Her narcissism also, of course, perceives that many members of the royal family are a threat to control, and therefore, unless there is a bigger gain to be obtained, for instance, the residual benefit of Netflix footage, which prompted, of course, the appearance at the Shushing of the Colour and the service of booze back in June during the Platinum Jubilee, for the most part, her narcissism drives her to assert control over the relevant members of the royal family by staying in a position of withdrawal. The narcissism, when those members of the royal family come up on the radar, invariably sees them still as a threat to control, and therefore that threat to control must be nullified. As you know, the narcissist does so unconsciously most of the time, because most narcissists are unaware, through the three assertions of control: direct, indirect, and withdrawal, withdrawal either being passive or active. Accordingly, when the Queen, or when he was Prince Charles, or the Duchess of Cambridge, or the Duke of Cambridge, whoever it was came up on the radar, the narcissism would assess, are they under control? And, for the most part, the answer would be no. The narcissism would then determine what's the best way of asserting control over them. Would that involve a hoover, i.e. physically involving Harry's wife with them, or sending a message or ringing them up? And for the most part, the narcissism would say, not a good plan, because of the risk of being wounded, i.e. those people will give her a frosty reception. Remember, her narcissism is a self-defense mechanism, and it's designed to try and prevent those instances occurring. Instead, it would assert control either indirectly or by keeping her in a position of withdrawal. It would only bring about some form of communication or physical involvement where the narcissism saw that there was a bigger win and the risk of wounding was worth taking. For instance, the necessity of turning up and getting some footage for Netflix, which is why there was the return for the Platinum Jubilee, and of course the attendance in Manchester, even though the royal family weren't there, but a potentially, certainly outside, hostile crowd could have been met, and of course, this is what is driving those behaviours. So the narcissism looks at it in terms of control, fuel, character traits and residual benefits, and determines there could be a risk to control here, but we can deal with that because we need the residual benefit of the money through the completion of the obligations under the Netflix contract. And therefore, that's why Harry's wife at the moment has kept sort of returning and having some form of interface with the United Kingdom and the royal family. However, when the initial invitation was made to say, would you like to come to Balmoral, and I think it was Charles that had issued it, Harry's wife's narcissism said no. Reason being, too great a threat to control perceived and no other offsetting benefit identified by her narcissism. So she rejected it. Note, of course, this demonstrates her absence of emotional empathy. The Queen was in poor health already. And, notwithstanding the fact that Prince Harry rarely saw his grandmother as often as he once did, by virtue, of course, of being dragged across the ocean, and Harry's wife rarely saw her grandmother-in-law, and the Queen was in frail health, and they were in the country where she actually was, anybody else would have thought, well, we must go and spend some time with Granny. We must go and see the Queen. Harry's wife narcissism doesn't work like that. It isn't motivated by emotional empathy, empathic traits of decency, kindness, and so forth, and caring. No, instead, as you know, it's governed by the assessment in relation to control, fuel, character traits, and residual benefits. And her narcissism simply said, that invitation represents a threat to control. I'm going to nullify that threat to control by saying no. Thus, the invitation was turned down, and they chose not to visit. Then, of course, there was a sudden change of mind, and as the Daily Express reported at the time, it stated, Harry's wife and Prince Harry cancel UK appearance as Duke rushes to see Queen. The article by Katie Harris explained, Prince Harry is heading to Balmoral to be at the Queen's side amid escalating fears for the monarch's health. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex, who are currently on a trip to Europe, were due to attend a charity event in London tonight, but have changed their plans as Harry rushes to see his 96-year-old grandmother. Buckingham Palace shared a rare update just before midday that the Queen is under medical supervision at Balmoral, with doctors concerned for her health. Harry and Harry's wife, who were living in California after quitting royal duties, were due to attend the Wellchild Awards ceremony in London on Thursday evening. However, they have cancelled the last engagement on their mini-European tour as Harry travels to Balmoral. Harry's wife is staying behind, but could potentially join her husband in Scotland at a later point. The Duchess had been planning to accompany Harry north of the border, but there was a change of plan, with the Duke making the visit alone. Notice here that originally, of course not driven by emotional empathy, there was no desire to go and visit. And then she is going to go and visit. The reason being her narcissism dictates that she should, in order to assert control, maintain the facade, because, of course, the Queen now is seriously unwell, and, of course, there's opportunity for drawing fuel, etc. And notwithstanding the potential risk of a frosty reception, her narcissism deems that it would be appropriate for her to attend. Of course, her narcissism doesn't allow her to think, do you know what, I've been an utter shithead towards the Queen and the royal family as of late. The smart thing to do would really let Harry go, and I'll stay out of the way and keep my head down. No, her sense of entitlement, lack of emotional empathy, lack of accountability, etc., means that she will, of course, see nothing wrong with her turning up. Her narcissism just doesn't allow her a conscience. However, although it doesn't allow her to look at the situation and think, do you know what, I've behaved like a total douche canoe, and the better thing and the most respectful thing to do would be just to stay away. No. Instead, it says, yes, you can go. And it would deal with any threat to control appropriately, so long as those threats to control didn't become too great. Of course, we then found that Harry was travelling alone in order to go and see the Queen. And Rosie Jempson, also in the Express, explained, Prince Harry travels alone to be with royal family, but Harry's wife may join him later. The Duke of Sussex made the trip to the Queen's Scotland estate on his own. It comes as Buckingham Palace confirmed the Queen has died. The couple were believed to be making their way to see the 96-year-old monarch earlier today, separate from other royals. However, sources have now suggested Harry would be making the trip solo. Royal expert Cameron Walker announced the news on Twitter. He wrote, looks like the Duchess of Sussex is not travelling to Balmoral with the Duke of Sussex. Prince Harry is making the trip by himself, sources have said. Other members of the firm, including Prince William, Prince Andrew, and the Earl and Countess of Wessex, are understood to have flown to Aberdeen earlier in the day. Harry's wife, however, will remain in London, the sources have said. She is expected to miss the Well Child Awards held in the capital on Thursday evening, which she and Harry had plans to attend. The Duchess could potentially join Harry in Scotland at a later date, a source told Press Association, following the change of plan. Now, what was it that caused her to decide, actually, I was going to go, or rather, I turned down your invitation, oh, now I'll come, actually, no, I won't. And what was it that caused her to decide that she wasn't going to then go? What might have impacted? Well, a further article from Tyler.com tells us Harry's wife is not travelling to Balmoral Castle alongside Prince Harry. Members of the royal family have been summoned to the castle to be beside the Queen after doctors said they were concerned for her health. A spokesman had previously said the Duke and Duchess of Sussex will be travelling to Scotland. However, it has since been confirmed that Harry's wife will stay in London, as will Prince William's wife, Kate Middleton. The Duke of Sussex will now travel alone to Balmoral to see his grandmother. However, she could travel up to Scotland to join the rest of the royal family at a later date. Again, the confirmation that what was occurring was that she was going to go, then there was a change of plan, not driven, of course, by any conscience, but rather driven by the potential threat to control that she would be given a frosty reception and also facade management. But what manifested that threat to control? What was it that suddenly caused her narcissism to reevaluate and say, well, we were going to go, but actually now we won't? Well, an online article by something called Meor.com headlines with, "Why is she going? Strong disapproval about Harry and Harry's wife heading to Balmoral may have caused change of plan." Harry's wife faced quite the backlash after it was initially announced that she and Prince Harry were both headed to Balmoral to see the Queen, after doctors expressed concerns for her health. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex were expected to attend the Well Child Awards ceremony in London on Thursday evening, but reportedly changed their plans to see the ailing monarch. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will be travelling to Scotland, a spokesperson for the couple had said. That exhibits her sense of entitlement, the fact that she sees nothing wrong at turning up at the bedside of somebody who she's regularly thrown pelters at. But later news confirmed that only Harry would go to see the Queen, while Harry's wife would stay in London in another change of plans. Other senior royals were also informed of the Queen's condition, and the latest announcement has heightened fears for her well-being. The initial news of Harry's wife joining Harry to visit the ailing monarch, however, had caused a stir on social media. Most expressed hearty disapproval of their plans for the emergency visit in light of Harry's wife's comments against the firm that shook the monarchy to its foundation. However, fans of the Duchess had also rushed to defence and called for empathy during this difficult time. "She should stay away," one tweeted. "Harry needs to be there fast and quietly. Leave his wife out of this. Too important. Show some respect, Harry." Another added, "Show some respect, Harry." A user shot back writing, "Would you not show your husband support if he needed it?" Somebody else wrote, "Harry should go along. Harry's wife should go home." What a nasty thing to say. Wouldn't you want your partner with you at a time like this? Another retorted to this. Clearly is again open warfare on social media. The article explains most appeared to scorn the Duchess and wondered why she was going to visit the monarch, especially after her relentless attacks on the royal family. Well, it'll be in the documentary, won't it? That's why she's going. "Oh, poor me, the granny-in-law who I barely met died. Silently weeps on camera," one wrote. "Too little, too damn late. The awful trouble and lies they've both caused. Why is she going?" another asked. What's Harry's wife doing there? She has no right after the way she's threatened the Queen and her family. I hope they stick her in a room by herself while Harry's allowed 5 minutes with his grandma. Then out they go, someone else offered. Those two are responsible for a lot of stress she has been put through, another added. Somebody else added she should stay away. And on it went. The fact is, Harry's wife believes that she should turn up because her narcissism dictated that that's the case, and she saw nothing wrong with attending, notwithstanding her recent behaviours, the compartmentalisation of her narcissism. Social media blew up, quite understandably, and that represented a threat to control. But ultimately, Harry will have been told that she was not welcome. And therefore, the fact that she was not meant that he faced a choice. Not go, or go alone. And of course his own empathy for his grandmother won the day, causing him to ensure that he continued in the journey and that she stayed. Of course, the fact that Catherine, who would be perfectly entitled to attend, and not somebody who'd caused any problems for the royal family, chose to stay in London, will have also been thrown as some kind of sop to Harry's wife. Catherine, of course, stayed because of the need for the children's, the need to be there for the children attending school. But it will have been sold to Harry's wife, look, Catherine's not going, so you shouldn't. There's no need for you to. It's the immediate family members, not the in-laws, that are going to be attending. And she'll have been persuaded on that basis. But the reason that she did not attend was not because she decided actually that's the right thing to do, but rather she was simply told that she should not be attending. And therefore, her narcissism had no choice in the matter but to accept that. She will have done so by then shunting to the facade by agreeing, yes, it's the right thing to do in the circumstances, isn't it? And of course, Catherine's not going, so that in a sense would have made her feel somewhat better because she wasn't the only one who was not going. She would not, of course, have been pleased about the fact that she was told that she could not go. After all, her narcissism causes her to be access all areas. But this sort of hokey-cokey that's gone on with Balmoral is indicative and demonstrative of her narcissism. The fact that she's invited but turns it down shows the high-handed, haughty, arrogant behaviours and the absence of emotional empathy, and demonstrates the way that she nullifies that perceived threat to control by saying, no, we're not going to bother coming, even though we don't see her very often and she's rather unwell and we're in the country anyway. No, we've got better things to do than go and visit his ailing grandmother, who, after all, is the Queen of the United Kingdom. Then, she's at death's door, is she? Okay, well, facade management dictates we'd better come, and I don't feel bad at all about still coming, notwithstanding my awful behaviours towards her and her extended family. I'm on my way, and after all, the narcissism is unconsciously reminding that there is that residual benefit of there's some footage to be obtained for Netflix, and you can do the false crying, etc. Then, she's told, you're not welcome. You're not to attend. That's a threat to control. Her narcissism, of course, doesn't deal with it directly and will have dealt with it indirectly as a combination of pity play and then playing to the facade of accepting it alongside the fact that Catherine was not attending also. Of course, Harry's wife didn't go and Harry did. But he got there late. As Stylecaster.com explains, according to People, a spokesperson for the Duke and Duchess confirmed that the reigning monarch's grandson Harry was en route to Balmoral Castle, but he didn't quite make it in time to say goodbye to his beloved grandmother before she died. Harry's wife, was unable to join him from where the couple was promoting the Invictus Games. Buckingham Palace issued a statement on September the 8th confirming the sad news, just hours after reports that Prince Harry was travelling to be with his family. So consequently, Harry didn't make it in time. That will impact upon him. He has emotional empathy. And notwithstanding, of course, his recent behaviours, which have been reprehensible, caused by a diminution and reduction of his emotional empathy by the influence of his wife, he still wanted to be with his grandmother. But he wasn't able to do so. That will weigh heavily on his mind. Was it the case that Harry's wife delayed him? We don't know for certain, but it would not be a surprise if that were the case. After all, it still has to be all about her. She has no emotional empathy for Queen Elizabeth. It doesn't concern her that the monarch of the United Kingdom and her husband's grandmother is dying. And therefore, she could stamp those cloven hooves in order to create some false emergency, dropping the narc bomb, in order to delay Harry. We don't know for certain whether that happened or not, but I'm simply explaining that this is quite a common narcissistic manipulation, even in situations as the imminent death of a family member. and one so important as a monarch of a country, that a narcissist operating with that self-centered need for control will kick up a fuss and cause that person who's trying to get away, trying to fly, trying to get on a train, whatever it was, to go and see this person before they die, in order to make it all about them, to nullify the threat to control posed by attention being on the person who's dying. Of course, Harry's wife doesn't give a jot about the demise of Queen Elizabeth. She will pretend to. Her narcissism will cause her to believe that she's upset and she's sad and that they were such good friends and that the Queen understood her, notwithstanding, of course, the repeated poor behaviours that she has exhibited. Once again, her narcissism will revise history and delete the fact that she's repeatedly made accusations against the Queen's family and caused her a lot of stress and indignation in the remaining years of her life. This, again, the hokey-cokey surrounding the visit, shows various aspects of the narcissistic dynamic in action. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.